So just to introduce you, Elias, first and foremost, good day, people of Mzansi, good day, people of Africa, good day, people of the world. Julian Kivitz here from MzansiMMA, Independent Media, and IOL News. For those who don't know, the Professional Fighters League recently confirmed the launch of Pfl Africa, a league franchise starting right here in the mother city, Cape Town, at Grand West Casino, July 26. Obviously, a big boost for South African and African MMA. And we are here for it. Today, we have the privilege of speaking to Pfl Africa General Manager Elias Schulze, if I'm not mistaken, a seasoned executive with nearly, is it 20 decades of experience, sir?
I've been focused on Africa work on and off for about 20 years. Yes, sir.
Okay, cool. And then also, just I just wanted to know from you, sir, have you been to South Africa before? And if so, where exactly have you traveled?
I spent actually a good amount of time in the Joburg region. I worked for McKinsey and Company's Nigeria division back in the day, but our mother office was in Joburg. So on and off, I've spent probably a year in and out of South Africa over the last, 10, 15 years. So I've always enjoyed it and loved it. And so was very excited. And actually with one of my best friends, I own a flat in Cape Town itself. So my wife and I like going down there as often as we can. And yeah, just, it's super enthused to have it be the launch pad for this sort of Pan-African sports mega venture that we're kicking off in July in Cape Town. So I kind of think of a better launch pad, and then we go to the rest of the continent, thereafter.
Awesome. Just touching on that, going to the rest of the continent, Pfl Africa Chairman Frans Ngannou touched on a few countries listed as potential venues for the Pfl Africa show last year, namely Nigeria, Rwanda, Ivory Coast, and Cameroon. Can you just tell us what exactly were the deciding factors in choosing RSA as the launchpad for the new brand?
Yeah. So just to be clear, all those other markets are in play. There are markets we are looking at for big tournament fights and even for things like the finals. And we'll have four sort of mega fights in our tournament this year, mega bouts, obviously leading to the finals at the end of the year. But then next year we'll do at least four or hopefully more. So we'll see how it all pans out. But South Africa made a ton of sense for its sort of one, through the great work of EFC and in Joburg, of course. There is a indigenous, if you will, like MMA fan base, which is great. So it's they're familiar with it. So in terms of sort of operating and kind of having some knowledge base, that's great. And there's just the infrastructure in Cape Town. It's a great way to just to get our training wheels, as we say in the States, with our training wheels and get them off as we move to the rest of the continent. I've lived and worked across other parts of Africa over the years, and enjoy operating in those places as well. But there are certainly certain advantages starting in a great place like Cape Town, where some of the best sports, events in history, or at least in the last few decades, have taken place. I have wonderful, reflections and memories of being there in 2010, obviously for the World Cup. So, this is our way of putting our stamp on it and saying we're taking this to the rest of Africa from here.
Awesome stuff. Yeah, obviously the infrastructure, hosting cricket World Cups, rugby World Cups, soccer World Cups, obviously played probably a big factor in you guys select. Obviously, aside from the massive MMA culture, also.
Exactly, and we are partnered up with SuperSport. They're obviously sort of from South Africa. We're also partnered up with Canal Plus, and so that's why we'll be in Francophone Africa. Again, countries I've lived in as well. And I think, what's interesting about some of the Francophone markets is that there's really interesting indigenous MMA, kind of combat sports. For example, Senegal, where I also live, they have, Senegalese wrestling, La Lutte. And that's fascinating, in itself and in a real art form. And so that's why we think there's a natural fit between kind of MMA as a new, let's say, style of sport that has merged over the last 30 or 40 years, and what we're seeing across the continent, which is a real resonance, with kind of the local art forms as well of this type of combat sport.
Awesome stuff. Just for the fans who don't know, also obviously Pfl Africa 2025 tournament will have 4 events across the continent featuring 24 top fighters from 14 countries, African countries. Elias, can you so you touched on we spoke a bit about Rwanda, Ivory Coast, and Cameroon. Can you maybe give us any insight into which country will be next, perhaps? like for the
Um,
next round?
so we're going to be making some big announcements next week, Tuesday or Wednesday, in terms of some continuation, in terms of kind of where the second quarterfinal will be. We have
Okay.
the first quarterfinal in Cape Town. Of course, the second quarterfinal will be in August. The semifinal, I'm not sure if this is out yet or coming out, but here it is. The semifinals will be in October, and the finals will be in December.
Yeah.
So that will be clear, and there will be a francophone, at least one francophone market, proudly represented there. That's what we can say for now. But we'll be rolling these announcements as things are confirmed.
Awesome stuff. Yeah, yeah. I see your socials did confirm the different dates this morning. You guys
Okay.
released that.
Okay, good.
And then also just on Cape Town's obviously now the kickstart now. Will you be considering Johannesburg, Pretoria? Obviously, Pretoria and Joburg also big, with EFC also being there, and Dricus du Plessis being a big name in Pretoria also. Will you be considering other cities in these respective countries, or will you be making a base first for the next couple of years? Like, okay, Cape Town's I go to in Africa for the next 2 years, and then going forward like that, or will you be exploring other cities also as soon as
No,
possible?
absolutely. Joburg is also, Joburg, Pretoria area is also in conversation as well. And I think, we hope that South Africa, you know, the continent has so many amazing places to kind of host these events. Obviously, there's a world-class infrastructure in South Africa, but not just that. Rwanda has done great work. There's new stadiums and sort of efforts being built across the continent that are world class, right? That beat or just as equal as any kind of thing you would find here in the UK or in the US. And so we're excited about that. So it means the continent's really open to us, and you kind of have ministries of sports or tourism or culture who are also very open to this and creating their own sort of MMA infrastructure. So all to say is that the continent, we're looking across the continent, literally everything and everywhere, pretty much, with few exceptions. But we do hope South Africa remains a recurrent part of our tournament season, whether that's every year, every 2 years. It's near and dear to us. So we want to ensure that it stays as part of the if we will, the roving infrastructure that we use.
Awesome stuff. Thank you. The upcoming fight card obviously will include the Champion Series in addition to PFL Africa card. Will all PFL Africa card, or perhaps only those for the foreseeable future, include Champion Series to basically help boost the show until the PFL Africa brand finds its own feet? Can you just elaborate on that, perhaps?
For now, at least this year, we envisage this as being the only one we've contemplated. I think Champion Series may, it's going to kind of be across the world in different fabulous venues. But it does say something that they selected to team up with us, right? We're our sister group, if you will, all in the same umbrella of PFL Global. But it does sort of say something about what we're trying to build here, and the enthusiasm, and also obviously the excellence of Cape Town as a launch pad and a global icon. So for the season, let's say the season, this will be the one with CS, but then they'll go to other interesting places, which they have their own reveal under works as well.
Okay, cool. And then also, will you guys be signing any female fighters for the PFL Africa franchise?
Yeah, so we've signed. The goal is to have, obviously, with more weight classes, also have that's part of the PFL infrastructure. That's part of the PFL model. Is always we have at scale when we build up, we have the female class as well, and so that is happening. That's underway. We're looking at various fighters. We've signed. Signed a couple. I think Juliet from Nigeria is public. I believe about that, and she was part of the PR and the launch in the fall. And she's a great icon for the sport as well. We're doing some work trying to feature her in.
Oh, is that
in
Juliet Chukwu?
No, sorry, Adeka. I'm just blanking on the name here. The last name, but a wonderful Nigerian fighter.
Yeah, I must have missed that. Apologies.
Yeah, no, she was part of the launch kind of effort in the fall, and we're excited to have her feature in showcase bouts. Really kind of high quality showcase bouts until we are able to hopefully next year even have a whole class where it's the same way. You go to the finals, through the quarterfinals, etc.
Okay.
Until then, we continue to build out the roster, but it's not just the female roster we're building out. It continues to be other weight classes, and ensuring we have. I think we have wonderful representation. I mean, 14 countries
Mm.
is really impressive,
Yes,
but
it
we don't
is.
want to stop at 14, right? We want to make sure that we have sort of adequate representation from all parts of Africa. And so we're actively and we actively kind of have a strategy of seeking out where we're under, let's say, under indexed in certain regions, and how to work with sort of the emerging talent from those regions so that they can enter the tournament next year, and maybe we feature them in showcase bouts and showcase fights during our season as well.
Okay, cool. Just for those for the fans, just a quick recap for those who don't know, PFL operates multiple live fight franchise, including the regular PFL, the regular league season, the PFL pay-per-view super fights, PFL Challenger season, Challenger series, sorry, the international leagues and Bellator. Obviously, the international leagues or regional leagues include PFL Europe, MENA, Middle East, North Africa, and then PFL Africa, also Champion Series. I spoke to Elias. I spoke to Senior VP of Corporate Communications, Lauren Mack, late last year, who said that PFL will introduce the regular league season.
Mm-hmm.
Are you looking at that possibly in the next 2 years, or can you speak on that? When exactly the sort of the template of the original PFL brand will come into play in Africa?
Well, it is. I mean, if he means by a single elimination structure, that's what we're starting with. I mean, these two quarterfinals that will happen will go to, single elimination. So if you win the quarterfinals, you win at the semifinals, you're at the final, and you win that, you're the champion of Africa, right? And then after that, obviously, there will be opportunities that emerge to compete globally or in other franchises, presumably. So, the sort of the typical, let's say, our trademark, which is, we believe, much more meritocratic, right, and much more easy to follow, right? While some fans might say, "Oh, let's put these two guys together or two gals together,"
Yeah.
what makes much more sense is to have a bench of amazing, kind of fighters, and then to say, okay, let's see who's the best, right? Like, honestly, who's the best? Not because I like two people to see them fight, or that's what some director wants, but that's actually what the fans want. The fans want to see who's the champion in Africa, and we'll take them through the single elimination structure in order for that to be made clear. And so, that's why we think this is particularly innovative on the continent, and sort of just the PFL model itself, which is one of innovation and merit in merit.
Okay, cool. Because I was just trying to figure out, because I mean, on the regular season, usually like a fighter will get a certain amount of points for a knockout or submission, and depending on the round, also then
Right.
that also determine where you land in terms of the knockouts later on. So I mean,
Right.
is Africa going to have that kind of season format also going forward?
No, I mean, this season it's going to be a simple
Knockout.
single elimination,
Yeah.
right? So, if it's by submission, if it's by knockout, it's by points. We will have judges there, obviously, who make rulings, if it goes through the rounds, and so it's straightforward, right? We just get the
Mm.
best going through, and I think that's what we all want. I mean, certainly that's what I would love to see, or I'm looking forward to seeing as well.
Okay, cool, cool. And then also, the PFL has an expansive global vision, developing international leagues, like the PFL MENA and Europe, also, as we spoke on, create, so to say, the Champions League of MMA. At which point will you guys actually consider signing PFL Africa stars to the regular main season that mostly takes place in the USA also? Or will that be a separate league entity on its own and only fed by upcoming or established fighters, for example, from other promotions or the PFL Challenger Series?
So in terms of sort of the global effort and who's recruited in, I mean, the global guys at Fighter Ops kind of have that mandate. I would say that what we're doing is ensuring that there is the best pipeline of world-class talent that have proven themselves across very difficult terrains, right, in these fights, and they're coming out ahead. And so the idea is that those who come out on top are champions of Africa,
Mm.
right? Are no doubt, very, very, very possibly champions of the world, right? And Francis Ngannou has shown that, right? And so that's kind of the idea. So though there will be mechanisms through which they are fed into, let's say, quote unquote, global opportunities. And this is one way to potentially identify that. But we think on its own will produce just kind of world-class talent that can compete anywhere in the world and in any region. And then we'll also have regional, and we could have PFL MENA versus PFL Africa, and
Yeah.
the champions of those going each other. Same thing in Europe. I saw the Belfast fight just a couple of days ago.
Yeah.
PFL Europe, it was brilliant. Paul Hughes just performed amazingly, and just the whole house was up in arms, just like cheering him on, and it was a wonderful moment. So you can
And the
imagine a
brand
fight
is
where
actually
he's
blowing up nicely that side, eh?
yeah, no, it's a brilliant venture on the PFL Europe side, led by David Green, who's just kind of a wonderful professional in the field. And so we're excited to eventually see those champions from Europe face off against the champions of Africa, right? And then obviously on the global side, there'll be really interesting fights as well.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you for that. I think you answered two of my two following questions also.
Okay.
Thank you for that, sir. Okay, so here's the launch of Pfl Africa. It's bolstered by strategic distribution partnerships, ensuring broad coverage across sub-Saharan Africa. In addition, as you spoke, SuperSport is also distributed to further expand accessibility. And PFL has introduced a mobile-first platform distributed in partnership with CFM, I think, exclusively via the region's leading telecos, delivering affordable fight content directly to fans across Africa, as stated on your site, I think. With these combined efforts, PFL Africa immediately becomes one of the most accessible sports leagues on the continent, and is on track to reach over 90% of African households. This is something very important, pertinent topic I want to touch on, because not everybody can afford SuperSport, for example. The packages SuperSport offer not maybe tailor-made to what you want. Like maybe you just want to watch UFC or rugby, so you have to basically, most package of these bouquets, you have to buy the whole package, and that can be quite pricey also. And as we know, also the old complaints of MMA fans across the world, UFC fight pass is so expensive also. Can you maybe just touch a bit on this mobile platform that's going to be such a great help and a game changer for fans in Africa also, and maybe touch on pricing perhaps, if possible?
Yeah, so I mean, this all comes out of, if you look at kind of the origin story of this, Francis Ngannou, Don Davis, the founder, they want this sort of, we all do, right? This 90% accessibility target, right? So like 9 out of 10 people living in Africa can easily access a fight, whether that's going there or seeing it on their mobile, or seeing it on free to air, or if they have Canal Plus or Super Sport, that there is no good reason for someone who wants to see a fight and is making effort to not see it, and certainly price will not get in the way. And so that's the strategy, and out of that comes comes our anchoring, obviously with SuperSport and Canal, fantastic partners, worked with them in the past, have a real heart for sport, have a real heart for creating more sort of Africa focused efforts, whether it's in entertainment or sport. So that's great. But then this layer, obviously, of mobile is important. I think, now 40% of sub-Saharan Africans have, access to at least, kind of the internet via their mobile, or use that on a daily basis. And 70% of the continent is under the age of 30. These are, key figures that just show that the little screen, if you will dominate. And so if the little screen's dominating, but data is still an issue, then how do we work around that, right? And so obviously CFM is one mean where it's, maybe it's sort of like a quasi freemium structure where there's certain content available for free, and then others, maybe there's a micropayment, that it will depend on per fight, and maybe as it evolves, it changes if it's the final versus the semifinal. So that's one method. We're looking at the idea of having, which we're really pursuing, of having a people's fight. So the idea is, can we get 0 rated in certain markets, right, where it doesn't actually use your data, but you can watch a fight if you have the the right carrier. And so that's also a wonderful way. So literally costs nothing. And so these are all things we're pushing towards this year, but some of them may take longer into next year. But the general strategy, and then of course we're with certain free to air partners, right, whether they be state owned or private. And I used to run a free to air channel in Ethiopia, so I'm keenly aware of the constraints, but also the ambition of a lot of these people who really want to, this is the way in many African markets that folks get their news, folks get their entertainment. And so we're partnering up with as many of them as we can, and ensuring that it gets into the households across the continent. And so far it's going well. So we're excited to bring it to the vast swath of the continent, even this first fight.
Now that's awesome because I want to applaud you guys and salute you for that because a lot of people don't understand also the realities also. But if you come with the right understanding also and meeting the people also halfway, then it's gonna be a great benefit to the brand also because the same like sometimes some free to air channels are allowed to play the Springbok brand. That's why the Springbok brand is such an
Mm.
amazing brand that's been elevated over this last few years because we're slowly connecting every community, for the
Yeah.
Springboks, and that's why the Springboks are not only the four-time world champions, but just the way they connected with the public also, and the different demographics in the different markets, socioeconomics, all those things come into play. And I just want to say it's really nice that you guys are taking that approach also because not everybody does consider that there are different there are different various levels in life also, and not everybody
Yeah.
understands people operate, the communities operate on different levels. So I just salute you
Well,
guys for
mm.
coming taking that approach.
No, appreciate it. And no, that, I mean, that's exactly, again, it's the heart of Don Davis, the heart of Francis Ngannou. It's, how having operated free to air before, it's for the people. It's funny because when I was in South Africa a couple of weeks ago talking, they say, oh, what's your target demographic? I'm like, that's a little bit of a weird question. Can I say everybody? Right?
Of course.
Because this is not for, those who live in a certain part of Cape Town or Joburg or Durban or whatever. I mean, it's like, we want everybody to tune in one form or fashion. We also want the tickets to be affordable, right? So
And
if you,
everybody
you
loves
are,
France and Ngannou here. It's not only one more. Everybody loves PFL. It's a
you want to be able to show up and see it. You want to be able to afford a ticket to go if you happen to be in that city, right? And
mm,
and so we really, this is the people's sport, and we believe that this, second or tiered with football or whatever, it should be Africa's sport in many ways because it is the most democratic and it brings together some of the the most local kind of like, again, some of these indigenous combat sports, but also ideas of patriotism, of
mm,
fighting for your family, of discipline, of resilience. Particularly this theme of resilience. You have to be incredibly resilient to be a good MMA fighter, right? I
yeah.
mean, it's just incredible what these guys go through and these gals go through, and that, I think, if anything, is synonymous with Africa. And so that's why we think this is a perfect, fit, frankly, for the continent. And that's why I got excited about it when I was
Mm.
approached with the possibility of joining PFL Africa.
Awesome stuff. Don't worry, you're not the only one excited. A lot of people are talking about PFL Africa. Can't wait for July 26th.
It'll
um,
be beautiful.
so on the thing in August 2023, PFL announced that it had sold a minority stake for initial investment of 100 million to SRJ Investments, I think. And then as part of the agreement, creating the PFL MENA also, and it was also labeled as encroaching into the UFC's territory also. Do you feel, speaking of encroachment, do you feel that it's a big an achievement also beating the UFC to Africa? They made a big hype about coming in 2022, and then it was last 2023, then it was 2024, and obviously now they're battling to come here because it doesn't suit their business model. Can you just tell us in terms of the achievement being the first major MMA global brand coming to Africa finally? Because so many of the future stars and current stars were actually born here. So just share your thoughts on that, please.
Yeah, I mean, again, MMA is a global sport, and so that's why it makes sense that we can be in the space and have success because there's just so much demand. And if you then tailor that to the DNA of the local market and find partners who are willing to put real effort and resources into it, such as Helios Capital, right? So Helios, HSCG is the fund associated with it, but Helios based here in London, whose office I'm sitting in,
Mm,
wonderful people, the best investors, private equity investors across the continent, in my humble opinion. And they teamed up and they said, we see real opportunity here. We're going to take that bet. And we're going to take that bet with PFL, because we believe this thing can can kind of be like a rocket ship, and also can be sustainable. This is not something that needs to bleed cash every year and year on year, right? It's not. This is a sustainable business model because the continent itself can build around MMA, right, and can rally around this. And so I think that what we did, with their backing was, and of course Francis's vision was to look at the continent and say this is a perfect fit, and we just need to find the right people to take those risks.
mm,
And our business model is built around that, right? Just the PFL regional league business model is built around that big regions where there is a natural fit. If they don't deserve, they they merit to some degree having a top tier, MMA franchise that invests in the local fighters, that invests in the local infrastructure. I mean, these are big fights. They're big budgets in terms of, what we put in to have world-class broadcast, world-class just sort of experience, and treat the fighters with world-class care, whether that's, the prize money or just like generally how we take care of them, or the refs or the medical care, all those things. I mean, it's all there, right? And it's all kind of best practice, what you would find anywhere else in the world where there are big budgets. And we're doing that here because we believe in the long term. When we say long term, it's not, it's not going to make sense in 10 years. This is about something making sense in 3 to 5 years, because we think the uptick will be that great. We think the uptake will really justify it. And I have no doubt that that's the case. And so in regards to what other folks do, UFC or others, I mean, they look through things through their own business lens, and I'll leave that up to them to decide how they interact in the world. But I do know the pie is big enough, and we're expanding it together.
Yes, correct. Thank you, sir. Elias, so I know this might be a bit naive to ask, because obviously someone might say, of course he'll be there because he's the PFL chairman. But I mean, we do know also Francis Ngannou is a very busy man also. Can you confirm, will the man be at Grand West Casino on July 26th? Because I've got kids asking me, is Francis going to be there? Is Francis going to be there? Can you confirm that the man, that the heavyweight champion, will be at Grand West? Yes or no?
This is what I'll do. Once I do have the confirmation, you'll be the first one I do call. He's going to be very involved in these fights, right? I don't know if he'll be at 100% of all of them in person, with his, with the full crew, but he's definitely, again, that's why he's with us, right? He's with us because we said we care about Africa and we think there's talent there. And he said, that's great. Like, I'm on board, right? And so he's been consistent with his support, whether it's helping on the talent identification and the roster we're building, or just sort of general business development and growth. He's there and shows up for the league. And so once I have confirmation, I'll let you know. But he'll certainly be present.
Well played. Okay, Elias. Touching on ticket sales now, and prices for PFL Africa. When will they go on sale? Which distributor will it be? Ticket Pro, CompuTicket, Ticketmaster? Can you touch on that for us, please?
What I can tell you is that it will go on sale very soon. We're looking at as early as towards the end of next week.
Nice.
So that's exciting. So as early as that, could go into the following week. We're just finalizing some things. And it will be with Ticket Pro. So yeah, and so we just like their approach, we like their reach, and we believe that they will offer us just a really viable way to reach, again, democratic. We want people to be able to have this access across whatever mechanism. It's pure mobile, that's fine, but if they need to go to Pick and Pay or whatever, that's also fine, right?
Nice.
Let's go where the people are.
Awesome stuff. Thank you very much. And then regarding fight week, can you give us a breakdown of will it be like a Monday to Friday build-up week? Will there be sort of exhibition warm-ups at the market hall? Is there any sort of build-up you'll be having aside from the weigh-ins now on the day before, if not mistaken? Can you just touch on that also, just because fans also want to know, they want to find out, will the fighters be staying on site at the City Lodge Hotel at Grand West, or will they be based in town? Because some of these fighters, they actually like to get signatures and everything in the build-up also. Yeah. Can you just give us a breakdown of that, perhaps?
We're still finalizing the lodging situation, but obviously they'll be close to the venue, if not there. It just makes sense logistically. In terms of that week, again, building out the schedule still, that with particularly since we now have CS involved, so it's a slightly, it's a more complex initiative. That said, we like we always do in the fight weeks, we cover the fighters behind the scenes, what they're doing, the training, the kind of them coming in. We'll do interviews. We'll ensure that the fans, whether it's via social media or some of the broadcast partners, really understand what's going on into it, to really get the heartbeat, right, as sort of in the anticipation. We might do a press day. I mean, sort of standard things like that. If we do more specific kind of behind, where fans are invited, we'll think that through. And if it makes sense, obviously we want to have the fighters to be as accessible as they can to the fans. So that's a good push. So let me think about that.
Awesome stuff. And then also just last question, Elias, will you be guys working? Will you guys be working hand in hand with Mixed Martial Arts South Africa, or will you be bringing your own officials? Just do you have any idea on what's going down there?
Yeah, in terms of just generally the regulation and the competition authority and sort of the commission and all of that, it's been a really good conversation so far. We have a specific, I mean, this is our first, I guess, foray into Africa in particular. We have a specific model that we use as needed in other markets. So sometimes we'll bring in refs or judges from other markets. So usually I would imagine it's going to be a hybrid model, right?
Okay.
Where we take advantage of the great, that just always, this is a long-standing MMA market, right? So there's not much to quote unquote, educate, right? The best practices are already here, and from what I can understand, they were gathered from global best practices. So South Africa's already there. So it's just then a matter of our business model, making sure that the folks that we want to have on board are there and blending in with the South African appropriate bodies of authority and things like that. But so far it's been a great conversation, and we're really excited to have that be seamless, which we think it will be.
Great, awesome. And then Elias, that's us for today. Is there anything you wanted to just share? Maybe something I didn't ask you that you wanted to get out there, perhaps, other than looking.
No, it's great. I mean, I appreciate. I just for whether for folks whether they like watch a lot of MMA or not, like I'll say this: it's an exciting sport to just be involved in, to watch. Grab a ticket, come along, join for the fights, tune in on it. Like it's going to be fun, right? And there's a real kind of heartbeat to this. There's a real spirit to this that I think transcends. I mean, certainly transcends. It's kind of globally transcended, if you will, and that's what I've experienced when I've seen some of these fights across the world. And I'm sure South Africa will be no different. And if anything, we'll take it to the next level. Here in South Africa. So appreciate the time, and if there's anything else, reach out and I'll do my best to answer.
Awesome. Elias, thank you so much for your time. God bless your future, God bless your plans, and God bless Pfl Africa. And I will speak to hopefully see you soon.
Yes, I'll see you in Cape Town.
Yes, sir. Keep well, Elias. Right. Thank you so much, man.
You have a good one. Take care. Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Bye.